Hello, dear students. Today, let us take the poem A River by A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan's full name is Attipete Krishnaswamy Ramanujan. His period is from 1929 to 1993. He is a poet, translator, linguist, folklorist, critic, and academician. He is highly honored during his career. He wrote in English as well as in Kannada. To him, poetry is ironies, witty handlings, and intrigues. Nature of the poem. The poem A River implicitly comments wryly on the lack of realism with which other poets have treated the same topic. This is ultimately a poem about the differences between writing that is realistic, conventional, and or highly imaginative. Through the poem, the poet raises the question of an artist's commitment to the society. This poem is pretty melancholic one. Structure of the poem. The tone of the poem is based on sarcasm and irony. The language used is very simple, on account of which the thought sequence of the poem is presented unmistakably and clearly. Imagery is the remarkable landmark of the poem. This is first stanza poem that is separated into uneven sets of lines. The first stanza contains 16 lines, the second 11, the third 7, and the fourth 15. They do not follow a specific rhyme scheme, but there are moments of repetition which help create rhythm. Cultural capital, city of temples, and third largest city in Tamil Nadu. So this is the information about Madurai that the poem has dealt with. Madurai has been an academic center of learning for Tamil culture, literature, art, music, and dance for centuries. Madurai means sweet city in Tamil. The city was the main hub of Sangam literature. Meenakshi temple is the famous temple of the city. So, the river mentioned in the poem is River Vaigai. So, let us know something about River Vaigai. Vaigai is a river in Madurai, Tamil Nadu, state of southern India. It originates in the Periyar plateau of the Western Ghats range and flows northeast through the Kambam valley. The valley lies between the Palani hills to the north and Varushanand hills to the south. Analysis of a river. In the first stanza, the speaker begins by setting the scene. He is going to be describing how the city of Madurai is described by poets. It is a place that is made up of temples and poets, and these poets have always sung of the same things. Every summer, In the city, the river basin is emptied. The river dries to a trickle and the sand is bare. The shapes and objects that are revealed are dark and somewhat ominous. There are sand drips and straw and women's hair. These things clog up the water gates made of rusty bars. Everything above the drainage system is old and in need of repair. The bridge is in patches, a fact that is revealed when the waters recede. In the last lines of this stanza, poet uses two metaphors to compare the stones to animals. The wet ones appear like crocodiles sleeping and the dry as lounging water buffaloes. Despite all of this, the poets only sang of the floods. There is so much more to the city that the poets are ignoring. Stanza 2. The second stanza of A River is only 11 lines. The he in the first line is a reference to a poet, perhaps the speaker himself. He states that he was only in the city for a day. It is in this stanza that a number of the more complicated and personal details are revealed. The details were not hidden, they were easily learned by the poet featured in this stanza. Everywhere the people spoke about the flood and the terrible things which resulted. It is not just a simple natural occurrence, it carried off 3 village houses as well as a pregnant woman and a couple of cows. The cows have names Gopi and Brinda as usual, making these lines lighter in tone than some of the others. The list like way in which this section of the poem is conveyed makes it clear that these are not uncommon occurrences. The people are used to them. Stanza 3. The problem that the speaker has with poets is made clearer in the third stanza as he speaks of the similarities between old poets and new poets. Both spoke about the floods yet ignored the tragedies which resulted. In fact, to make it worse, the new poets copied what the old ones did. There was no evolution in style or subject. In the fifth and sixth lines of this section, the speaker states that it is possible that the woman who died was going to give birth to twins, increasing the life lost. This is a very interesting contrast to the flooding of the river in the first place. The waters are meant to fertilize the land and make it possible for the next crop to grow. Life is destroyed as it is being created. So, stanza 4. In the final stanza, the speaker relays the words of the poet again. He said that the poet complained of how the river has water enough to be poetic about only once a year. It is only once a year that the poets pay attention to it, and even then they don't want to speak about the loss of property or life. The speaker repeats a section of the second stanza again, restating what was lost. There are additional details added. Now, he says that the woman believed she was expecting identical twins. They were going to be perfectly the same with no way to tell them apart except through dressing them like in colored diapers. This is another humorous line, but it has a darker undertone. It speaks to the lack of care with which the poets approached the land and people. There is no desire to know who these people are or quest to adequately depict their suffering. So, the poem till here we have understood that it is about the defects in the civilizations. So, civilizations, they are always known for grandeur. They are noted for some stately kinships and kingdom, whereas the common people, their suffering, their tragedy, they are neglected in the course of history. So the poem has dealt with the floods in the river, which have done so much of catastrophes and tragedies in the lives of common man, but they are neglected, they are given an indifferent attitude in the course of history. This is what the poem is about. Now we have some multiple choice questions. Please go through all these multiple choice questions. And now we have reference. So, yeah, thank you for doing this. Thank you.